This is a video for STS 205 about getting started with R. You might find it useful if you have not previously used R or RStudio before. If you still need to download R and RStudio and install them, you can find instructions here on the Schedule tab. This link goes to a video that I made about installing R and RStudio, and then these are the links for downloading R and RStudio. So once you've done that, come back here, and what we're going to do in this video is going down to this book, Humanities Data in R by Taylor Arnoldson and Lauren Tilton. And if you click on that, just make sure that you're either on campus or connected by the library VPN, and then you'll be able to access the whole book. So I'm going to this chapter, A Short Introduction to R. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to work through this chapter using a variety of approaches to, or a variety of methods for working with R. So here's the chapter. You'll want to have that open as you're watching this video. So I'm going to move this to my other window so that you can see what I'm doing in this window. So I'm going to start by working with R in the command line. That's the most basic way of working with R. So on a Mac, you'll find your command line in this terminal application. And I have it in my dock because I use it a lot, but if you don't have it there, you can find it by going to your Finder, Applications, scroll down to Utilities, and here it is. You can double click to open it up. And once it's open, you can, if you want to keep it in your dock, options, keep in dock. So I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger and increase the size of the text so you can see it. So the command line is really just a non-graphical way of interacting with your computer. And so when I open up the terminal, I'm in the root folder of my file structure. And I can see that here by typing pwd, print working directory, and it tells me I'm in users Emily. So I can get there in my Finder window with Go Home, and here I am, users Emily. And here I see all of the folders that are in the Emily directory, and I can see the same thing here with the ls command. So that lists all of the folders, and I can see that they're the same folders, so I'm in the same place. And from here, there's a variety of things I can do. I can move into other directories. I can make directories, make files, delete files. I can also start working with R right here. And so the way to do that is just to type R, enter, and it tells me which version of R I'm working with, and just a little bit of information and some instructions. Particularly useful is this information about how to quit R when I'm done. So this arrow, this greater than sign, is the R prompt. And once I have that, I can go ahead and start doing the examples that are in the Arnold and Tilton book. So the first example, the first thing that they show us is that R, at its most basic, is a giant calculator. I can type in a mathematical expression, 1 plus 2, and get the result, which is 3. I can also type in much more complicated mathematical expressions. So this is the example that they give, is 1 divided by 2 plus 17 minus 1.5 plus square root of 2. And so the way that R is going to evaluate this is just as you would evaluate a mathematical expression. So you're going to start with the things in parentheses and then do multiplication and division before addition and subtraction. And R very quickly gives us the result. So the next thing that Arnold and Tilton show us is how to create a variable and assign a value to it. So the example they give is, instead of just saying, okay, what's 1 plus 2, that they're going to save the result as the variable x. So we're saying x takes the value, so that is the assignment operator, that less than sign followed by the minus. It's like an arrow pointing to the x. So x takes the value of 1 plus 2. And as you'll see, R did not print anything here. It did not print any output. It saved the value of 1 plus 2 as x, but it doesn't show us anything. We can see the value of x just by typing x, and it tells us it's 3. There is another way that we can see the value as we're assigning, making the variable assignment, and that's to put the whole thing in parentheses. So I'll create a different variable just to show you that. So we'll have a 5 plus 2, and R tells us that that's 7. We can also check it this way. So variables can have just about any name. There's some rules about naming variables. They have to start with a letter. They can't have spaces, things like that. But so we could call it cat. And the assignment, as you've seen, it can be a mathematical expression, but it can also just be a number. So we'll say cat equals 4 and cat equals 4. And so now we can do math with these variables. So the example that Arnold and Tilton give is they say x divided by 2, which is 1.5. X still has its original value of 3. If we want to save the new value, 1.5, we can save it. We can either save it as x, which would overwrite the original value, or we can save it as a new variable. So what Arnold and Tilton do is y equals x divided by 2. And then y is 1.5. So we can also, going back to this cat example, we could say cat plus x, and that's 7 because cat was 4, x was 3, so 7. Or we can say x minus y is 1.5. 3 minus 1.5 is 1.5. Okay, so we have these objects that we've created now. We have x, y, and cat. And we can get information about them using some of R's built-in functions. So the function that Arnold and Tilton are showing us here is the class function. So the class function looks like that. All functions are going to have parentheses, which is where you pass arguments to the function. And so the argument that you're passing to the class function is the variable that you're interested in. So let's say we want the class of x, class x, and R tells us that x is a numeric variable. Actually, all of our variables are numeric at this point. And if we want to see what variables we've created, we can use the same ls command that we used in the command line, but now it has parentheses because it's now an R function. And we see that we have created the variables a, cat, x, and y. So that takes us through section 2.2 of the Arnold and Tilton chapter. And so as we've seen, the command line is a really basic, kind of quick and easy way to interact with R. It's not great for reproducible research because at this point, we have no record of what we've done. So we're going to move into our studio and into writing our scripts. Before we go there, though, I just want to point out one thing about R. So when you're working with R, you are able to interact with the computer. And so we're working in a directory. So remember when we first opened up the command line, we did pwd to see what directory we were in. In R, the command is get wd, so get working directory followed by empty parentheses. And it tells us that we're in users Emily. And this should not be a surprise because that's where we were when we initialized R. So any data that we are trying to bring into R, trying to work with in R is going to look for it in this users Emily folder. Also, any files that we write to disk are going to be saved in this users Emily folder unless we move or give it a different path. So, and we can right here in R, we can write files. So just as an example of this, let's see if I can remember the command. Let's say write new text file equals new file.txt. And I'm missing a comma. So, okay. So just to show you something, in this command that I just typed, I realize I'm missing a comma. So I want to get it back. I use my up arrow and it comes right back. And now I can go use my left arrow, put in that comma, and there we go. And I didn't get an error message, and I can see over here, now I have this new file that just appeared in this directory. I can open it up. I actually don't even need to open it up. I can see right there that it says new text, um, just as I would have expected. So I just wanted to give you a sense before we go into R Studio of how R is interacting with the file structure on your computer. So let's get out of R here. We'll Q to quit. We're not going to save the workspace image. And there it is. Okay, so join me in the next video. We'll go into section 2.3 of this chapter, and we'll start working in R Studio.